Thank you very much, Mr. President, for this really extremely interesting presentation. We have time for just a couple of questions, I'm afraid. And I'd like to start the questions by referring to something which Friedrich Merz, when he spoke earlier today, referred to. If I remember correctly, it was in the year 2020, 6 years ago, when you spoke here, you talked about nuclear strategy. You repeated what you had said earlier at a speech in Paris. And it is now 6 years later, if I'm correctly informed, that my government is now reacting by saying, yes, we are starting to talk. Could you talk about this again, please, and tell us, have we lost 6 years? Is our answer 6 years late? And what exactly could we expect if there is now going to be a dialogue, hopefully not just a Franco-German dialogue, but a dialogue between France as a nuclear power with her European partners? Please.
Thank you very much. I think it's normal it takes time because it's a very sensitive and complicated issue. But I want here to remind everybody that since the very beginning, the French deterrence, nuclear deterrence, has what I would call a European inspiration. General de Gaulle, since the 1960s, mentions the fact that part of the vital interest of France was precisely the European footprint. So it's not new. And all my predecessors reiterate this approach. But I think in this very time and for me it's clear since 2019, and the unilateral withdrawal of the INF Treaty by the US, we have to reshuffle and reorganize our architecture of security in Europe. Because the past architecture of security was totally designed and framed during Cold War times. So it's no more adapted. Obviously, today we are 100% focused on the support to Ukraine, which is normal. But this new architecture of security will be part of a long-standing peace package, for sure. And it's extremely important in this regard to take into consideration all the capacities. Our own military capacities at the national level, perhaps some common capacities at the European scale. We should think about that. Long-range missiles and deep precision strikes. This is why I mentioned this capacity, because it's extremely important, at least to be credible in this dialogue with Russia, because they do have these capacities. So if you want to start a credible dialogue, sometimes you have to do more, even if this is to do less after a negotiation. But it's extremely important. And we have to re-articulate nuclear deterrence in this approach. And this is why we are conceiving, and in a few weeks' time I will detail that, but we engaged a strategic dialogue, obviously with Chancellor Merz, but with few European leaders, in order to see how we can articulate our national doctrine, which is guaranteed and controlled by the Constitution, with special cooperation, common exercises, and common security interests with some key countries. This is exactly what we are doing for the first time in history with Germany. And I think this dialogue is important by itself, but it's important because this is a way to articulate nuclear deterrence in a holistic approach of defense and security. And this is a way to create convergence in our strategic approach and strategic culture between Germany and France. And I think for me it's very important, because this is the cornerstone of such a path forward. I want to say as well, we have obviously a specific dialogue with UK as another nuclear power. And in Northwood, a few months ago, we finalized a new treaty precisely going forward in this cooperation. And we have as well some leaders disclosed this discussion. Wolf is part of them. So with Sweden, we have as well a very specific discussion, but with a selected approach.
Thank you very much. We have time for maybe one more question, because dinner is waiting. I'm looking for maybe the gentleman here in the third row. If you could please identify yourself.
Oleksiy Goncharenko, member of the Parliament of Ukraine. Monsieur le Président, merci beaucoup pour votre soutien à l'Ukraine dans votre discours. But my question is next. We hear a lot of support here in Munich for the 4th year in a row, but unfortunately less and less Ukrainians survive during these years. So my question is, when the coalition of willing will become coalition of sending troops to Ukraine now? Because when you are saying we will send troops after the ceasefire, it's signal to Putin, don't end the war. But when you will say we are sending troops now, that's the signal there is no sense to continue the war. He will not achieve his goals in any way, because we need peace as soon as possible here in Ukraine. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. And let me express my gratitude for your French words and our respect to Ukrainian people and their strength and their resistance. What you describe is perfectly true, because since day one, what we decided is to help Ukraine in this resistance war, but to refuse to engage in an escalation process with Russia, meaning not to attack Russia on its territory and not to engage boots on the ground. So we still work in this limit, and you're right. And I totally understand your frustration and what you say. At the same time, we did a lot of things a lot of people thought as unthinkable a few years ago. I mean, sending fighter jets, tanks, long-range capacities, a lot of financing, etc., etc. So 1 year ago, a lot of people were just hoping that this effort will not stop. What I can tell you is, first, as Europeans, we provided a clear message. This support is not contingent to the financial support of the US. And it's very important because it is undervalued. We are no more dependent on the US financial support. The coalition of the willing members finance 100% of the war effort. We are still dependent on some US capabilities, some equipments, but we buy it to the US. They don't even give it. We buy it to the US. With European taxpayers' money, with Canadian taxpayers' money, Norwegian taxpayers' money, etc. So we de-risk from this point. Now what we have to do is clearly, to make clarification on the ongoing discussion. I don't see any evidence and confirmation that the Russians want to finalize peace now. They still bomb civilians, they procrastinate, and what they do, quite classically, is that they bank all the concessions being made by negotiators on territories and other things. So they want to last. So we have to organize ourselves to last and to resist. Today, if we engage and send troops on the ground in this situation, we take the responsibility of escalation. I'm honest with you. If we send troops on the battlefield. So I think today you will not have any consensus to do so, and I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, and I think we would be responsible of triggering, I think, probably a loss of control of the situation. What is important to us now is to deliver the package we voted and we decided, to put your country in a situation on energy and defense and security to resist, but as well to reconverge with the US on a common perception on the situation. As long as the US will have number one scenario, I have a short-term deal and I will favor this scenario, we will lose efficiency in terms of sanctions and pressure and so on. So I think our top priority should be in the weeks to come to re-engage with the US, assessing with us the fact that there is no more room for credible short-term negotiation, and putting additional sanctions, additional actions against the shadow fleet, and increasing the pressure on the Russian economy in order clearly to stop this war, but in a much better situation. This is my view. I perfectly understand and respect the fact that this view is not the ideal one for you, but this is, I think, a credible one, and on the short run, the best possible scenario.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm sorry to all those who wanted to ask additional questions. We've really run out of time. dinner is waiting for, I hope, all of you, certainly for you, Monsieur le Président. This is why I would like to invite you once again to offer a round of applause to our